Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty big from the 2025 NFL Draft. The slide of Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son.
Yeah, Coach Prime's son. It definitely got people talking.
It really did. And we've been looking at some articles, some analysis, and it seems like this might not just be your standard draft day fluctuation.
Right, there's this sort of undercurrent, a suggestion that maybe, just maybe, Sheddeur's draft spot was, well, aimed at Coach Prime himself.
Exactly. So our mission today is to kind of unpack that, dig into the layers, see what the potential dynamics were.
And I think the core question we're circling is, was this just about talent evaluation? Did NFL teams look at Shedeur and say, okay, this is where he fits?
Or was there something else?
Or was it like a bigger power play? League owners sending a message maybe to Deion, touches on influence, power in the NFL, all that stuff.
It really does. And let's be clear, Shedeur isn't just riding on the name. This guy can play.
Oh, absolutely.
His senior year stats at Colorado, what was it, over 4,100 yards.
Yeah, something like that. And 37 touchdowns. Impressive numbers.
And he won awards too, right?
Yeah.
Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year.
And the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. Serious credentials.
And people were comparing him to guys already in the league, like Burrow, Jalen Hurts.
Dak Prescott, too. Those comps weren't just fluff. They suggested, a high ceiling, real NFL potential, poise, talent.
Which makes the slide even more puzzling, doesn't it?
It really does, because you had teams, a lot of teams, looking for a QB.
Yeah, the Titans, the Browns.
Raiders, the Saints, Steelers.
Even the Giants. They passed on him twice in the early rounds.
Right. When you see that, despite the projections, despite the obvious need,
yeah,
you start to wonder.
And that's where this other theory comes in, this idea that it wasn't just about team rankings or maybe a bad pro day.
Exactly. This message to prime theory, it's gained some real traction. The idea being this was maybe a calculated move by owners, a way to, I guess, communicate with Deion. There was that quote floating around.
Oh, yeah, if we can't get you, we'll get your son.
Yeah. That's pretty pointed. It suggests something, personal, strategic, beyond just evaluating a player.
Okay, so let's unpack that. This whole message to prime angle. Because Deion, his impact on college football is undeniable.
Absolutely massive. He doesn't just coach, he heads headlines, he shifts the narrative.
Yeah, getting top recruits to Jackson State, then doing it again at Colorado.
And doing it his way. Bold, flashy, unapologetic, very effective, but definitely outside the usual mold.
He really challenged the establishment. The old boys club, maybe.
You could definitely say that. He wasn't really playing by their rules, and he was winning. And our sources suggest the NFL owners, they noticed.
They noticed the success, but maybe also the way he was doing it.
Seems like it. He built his own brand, his own power base, really, not asking for permission.
In the NFL, well, the league values control, right?
Yeah.
Image, power, hierarchy.
Very much so. And there's this perception, maybe a reality, that the league has a long memory. They don't love being challenged.
So if they felt they couldn't directly control prime at the college level,
then maybe, the theory goes, they looked for leverage elsewhere, like the draft prospects of his kids.
But it's important, like you said, Shedeur is a talent. He's not just Prime's son.
Crucial point. His stats, the awards, the pre-draft buzz from analysts, that was based on his play. This wasn't just nepotism.
No, definitely not.
Right.
But leading up to the draft, there were some criticisms popping up. Anonymous ones.
Whispers about mechanics, decision-making.
And even character stuff, right? Like entitled or not very good.
Yeah.
That harsh quote about a formal interview being the worst.
Yeah, those anonymous hits, they felt different from just standard pre-draft nitpicking.
It raises questions about where that stuff comes from, the motivation behind it.
Well, Deion himself weighed in on that. He basically said, look, if you don't like me, just say it.
Right. His quote was something like, just say you don't like me, but don't attack my kids because of that.
Exactly. Which puts the focus back on whether personal feelings about Deion might have bled into the evaluation of Shedeur, especially with anonymous sources.
So that brings us back to the draft itself. That's about talent, sure. But maybe it's also about reinforcing the NFL's power structure is control.
That's definitely a lens some are using to view this. Passing on a guy like Shedeur, especially when teams needed a QB, it could send signals.
Signals to who?
Well, multiple signals, potentially. One, to Deion. Your college clout doesn't automatically translate here. Pedigree, hype. Doesn't guarantee anything in the NFL's world.
Okay, makes sense.
2, maybe a message to Shedeur. You got to earn it on your own terms now. Your dad's legacy is one thing, your NFL career is another.
You're in your stripes.
And 3, perhaps, to the media, to the fans, we control the narrative. The NFL decides who gets picked where, not the outside noise.
So how did Deion and Shedeur actually take it? What was the reaction?
Well, from what we're seeing, Deion didn't exactly, lash out publicly. It was more like taking notes.
Taking a mental note, I think was the phrase he used.
Yeah. Right, which fits his whole persona. Right, like, okay, noted. Revenge is winning. Building the legacy.
Using it as fuel.
Exactly. And Shedeur admitted surprise. He said, we all didn't expect this, but then immediately followed up with, it's fuel to the fire.
Okay, so that determination is there.
Definitely. And Deion also framed it spiritually, didn't he? About God closing doors, opening others.
Yeah, to make sure you get to where you're supposed to go. Putting a positive spin or maybe a faithful spin on it.
Which is also very on brand for him.
It's interesting, though. Could this whole thing backfire on the league, if that was the intent?
How so?
Well, by letting him slide, maybe they've just made his story more compelling, put a bigger spotlight on his NFL journey.
That's a really good point. The narrative now is the overlooked talent, the guy with the chip on his shoulder. Every success will be amplified.
Yeah, like, see? They were wrong.
Yeah.
It could actually strengthen the Sanders brand, ironically.
And maybe strengthen Deion's message, too. That whole thing about self-respect, self-promotion, owning your power.
For that next generation of players who maybe feel the old system isn't serving them.
Players who want to, as the sources say, own it. This could resonate deeply. Like, look what happened to Shedeur. Maybe we do need more control.
So this might be bigger than just one draft, one family. It could be part of a larger shift.
Potentially. A shift towards player empowerment. But it also forces us to ask about fairness.
Absolutely. Was his draft spot fair based on his actual play? Or did these other factors, these criticisms, weigh too heavily?
Especially the anonymous ones about intangibles compared to his on-field production.
And Deion's point about a possible double standard, you have to consider that too.
Are his kids judged differently because of who he is? It's a valid question.
So from the lead side, what's their potential thinking here? According to the sources, were they maybe worried about the, what was it called, the prime industrial complex?
Yeah, that phrase popped up. Basically, the whole media machine, the brand, the attention that follows Deion everywhere.
So the league might have wanted to push back, reassert control.
It's possible, like a reminder. The league sets the terms, not individual personalities, no matter how big.
A sort of institutional muscle flex.
Could be interpreted that way. We run the show here, not Coach Prime. A reminder that the shield, the NFL brand, is paramount.
It really does capture that tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Star power versus the institution.
Always a factor in pro sports, but maybe especially potent here given Deion's unique profile.
Okay, so let's try and summarize this deep dive then. We had Shedeur Sanders, a top QB prospect, slide unexpectedly in the 2025 draft.
Right. And that slide sparked a lot of talk. Was it just football evaluation or is it maybe more?
Yeah, specifically, was it potentially a message aimed at his father, Deion Sanders, from NFL owners trying to assert the league's power and control?
That's the core debate. And it leaves us with some big questions moving forward.
Like, was this actually a coordinated thing by owners? Or just individual teams making calls, maybe influenced by a general vibe about Prime?
And what's the long-term fallout for Shedeur's career, for Deion's influence overall?
How does this change the dynamic between big college personalities and the NFL machine?
Those are the things we'll be watching. It's far from over.
Definitely. And here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on. If, and it's a big if, but if the goal was somehow to humble Deion Sanders, did they maybe just light a bigger fire? By giving both him and Shedeur this massive dose of fuel, have they maybe just accelerated the very disruption they wanted to contain?
Wow. That's something to think about. Did they inadvertently make the Prime effect even stronger?
Could be. Watching Shedeur's career unfold now, it's going to be fascinating. A real case study in power, perception, and, well, the Prime effect.
Couldn't agree more. It'll be quite the story to follow.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.